Okay, let's make a start. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-ikhlas fi qawli wal amal. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, my dear sisters, to ayah number 14. Inshallah, the aim is to complete ayah number 14 today. Let's have a look at this is the part of the ayah that we actually covered yesterday. I'm just going to cover it quickly. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قالت الأعراب آمنا قل لم تؤمنوا ولكن قولوا أسلمنا ولما يدخل الإيمان في قلوبكم. And then we come to the last part of the ayah. There's a little bit of things, a few new things that I want to discuss with you today. So, inshallah, today should be quite an interesting day for us, or a more interesting day for us, I should say, rather. So we have here, first of all, we start off. So I'm going to say the Isti'adha and the Basmala with the sisters, so that everybody at home can get a chance to read. So, Sister Salma, if you'd like to join me for this part, please. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
Good. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Jazakumullahu khairan. So we start off with this ayah, and we already see a rule that we have seen before. Okay, we have the noon sakin followed by the letter ta. For those of you that can remember the name of the rule, say it out to yourself, just to see if you can remember. The more you say, the more opportunities you get to actually identify the rules yourself first before I've said it, the more these rules are going to become consolidated for you. So have a go, think about it. We've seen the noon followed by the ta. We saw it in the very first ayah. Not the first ayah, the second ayah, when we had tahbata. I've mentioned this, I've come back to this word because that was, I think, the first time that we saw this rule. So if you can remember the name, of course, here we are hiding the noon. It is ikhfa, haqiqi. And to know whether it has a heavy or a light gunna, we check the next letter. The next letter in this case is a letter ta. And letter ta is a light letter. So we will say that this is with a light gunna. Okay. So here, what are we doing again? We get prepared for the ta. Now, I haven't been in much detail in terms of the now, because we have a ta and a ta together, I do want to go into a little bit more detail in terms of the makhraj of these letters. I don't think I've gone into it for these letters before. We covered, for example, the letter, we had the letter tha, the letter dha, and the letter dhal. We covered these three letters. And we talked about the tongue sticking out for them, if you remember, okay? And how the tip of the tongue sticks out a little bit. And for the va, the middle one, it sticks out the least, okay? So if we now go on to, sorry, it's letter tha, should have 3 dots on it. Okay, so if we now go into the letter, so these are letters that we've covered before. I'm going to rub it out just so that you don't get confused. And I want to write now, the 3 letters we'll be doing today, which is the letter dal, the letter ta, and the letter ta. Okay, all 3 of these letters share the same makhraj too. Okay, they come from the same articulation point. So what is the articulation point of these 3 letters? Okay, again, it's tarful lisan, it's the tip of the tongue. So we're going to be using this area that we see here. Okay, and this time, where is the tip of the tongue going? Because so we've had, for example, the tip of the tongue going down, right? We've had the tip of the tongue going to the roots of the lower incisors. That was for the letters like letter sin and za and sad. We had the tip of the tongue sticking out, so touching the bottom edge of the upper incisors. That was the 3 that I mentioned earlier, the dal, the fa, and the ra. Now we have another one where we have the tip of the tongue. Where is the tip of the tongue going this time for these 3 letters? It's going behind the upper incisors. Okay, so if this is your upper teeth, there's your upper incisors here. I'm pointing at the right ones. Yeah, so these 2 are your upper incisors. Where is the tip of the tongue going? It is going behind the gum. So let me just see what I'm doing here. So it's going to go here. Okay, here. Okay, now a very common mistake is that sisters often, when they pronounce these letters, their tongue is pushing against the teeth. So what will happen is that their tongue kind of comes up like this. It presses against, now let me just make sure I'm doing it. Yeah. So it presses against the teeth, and they're pressing on the teeth as well with their tongue, doing like da, 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 da. They press against the teeth. You don't want to be doing that. I know that in some of our mother tongues, in our languages that we speak at home, that's how we pronounce, for example, the da. We'll say da, da, tu, ti, right? But for the Arabic, we don't pronounce the da and the dal and the ta like that. We do not press against the teeth. We're actually a little bit behind, so that our tongue is very close to the teeth, but it's actually on the gums. Okay, it's on the gums just behind the upper two front teeth. That's where the tip of the tongue is pressing. Okay, so instead of making a sound like da, we make a sound like da, da, da. It sounds lighter. Okay, and you're also not just relying on this part of the tongue. You're relying on the top of the tip as well. This part of the tongue is pressing at the top too. Okay, so da, da, pa. So what's the difference between these letters now? We know that the da and the dal are the same in terms of they're both going to be read light. When I say da, da, the light, da, 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 da. With the with the da, you're using like a slightly wider area, but with the dal, you kind of use a more concentrated area of the tongue. Okay, that gives you your it helps to produce the shidda quality, right? The sharpness or the strength in your dal, which the ta. Ta does have shidda, but because it has hums, it has the breath as well. It kind of weakens it a little bit. With the dal, it's a stronger letter because one it does have the jahar. It has it has the shidda, which is the strength in the makhraj, and it has the jahar, so it doesn't have the breath. It has just the sound of the voice, which makes it sound stronger. Okay, and then we have the letter ta. What's going on with the letter ta is, again, it's using the same part of the tongue that you do for the letter ta, but this letter is heavy. Okay, how do you make it heavy? Well, you've got to get the back of the tongue involved, and you have to think about the direction of the sound of your voice. The sound of the voice will not be coming straight out through the lips. You'll be directing it. This time it'll be the middle of the upper palate. Okay, it'll be that, it's almost like vertical type of direction, more vertical. Why? Because the ta doesn't just have isti'la. It's not just a heavy letter, but it also has itbaq. It has that extra heaviness. Okay, so the reason I wanted to go into detail here is because we have both of these two letters next to each other. And especially when they come next to each other like this, it is very, very easy to make them sound the same. So if you're saying tuti, see, it just sounds like you're saying two tas. Or if you say tuti, again, it's like two tas. Okay, so you should be pronounced, they should sound different. It should be tu, nice and light, tu, thinking about where the tongue is hitting. It's not pressing against the teeth, remember, it's pressing on the gums behind the upper teeth. Tu. And then for the ta, you then think about, okay, I've got to make this heavy. Where's the sound of my voice being directed to? The middle of the upper palate. What's going on with my back, with the back of the tongue? It's being raised and it's going a little bit backwards and making like a oh type of sound. Ba, ooh, li. Sounds different to the t. If I was saying t with a kasra, if I was saying this one, it would be t. But if I say this one, the letter ta, then it's li. Sounds different, right? So they've got to be distinctly different when you say them. Okay, tuti, tu, nice and light at the beginning. So it requires a little bit of control. And it may take a little bit of practice. Okay, so let's finish with this. Let's practice this, inshallah. Just before we do, actually, let's just one more thing, because the next word is joint with the next with the name of Allah. So we have tuti. The ti is stretched for 2 counts. The ain is joined with the lam in lafzul jalala. Okay, in the name of Allah. Remember, with the name of Allah, we have to think about whether the lam is heavy or light. So this now, I think we've reached the point where we've covered this so many times, you should be able to say out loud yourself at home whether you think these lambs are going to be heavy or light and why you think they're going to be heavy and light. So have a go, think about it, think about whether you think these lambs are heavy or light and why. The lambs here in the name of Allah are going to be read heavy. They're going to be read heavy because we checked the letter before and it has a haraka at the top. It has a dhamma. So the lambs will be read heavy. The ha at the end is light. So let's have a go at this, Sister Humaira, if you're ready, please. وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ.
وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ.
Your ta is good. It's nice and heavy. It's more like it should be, alhamdulillah, than the ta. The ta can be lighter still. So I'd like you to say for me, ta.
Ta.
And I'll use the same place and say, ta, tu.
Ta, tu.
Yeah, now it sounds like you're using, are you pressing against the teeth? When you
Yes,
say,
I think
yeah, so a little bit behind, think about where your tongue's going, pressing on the gums at the top. Press upwards, not outwards against the teeth. Tu, tu.
Tu, tu.
This is better. This is much better. Yes. Let's try it one more time. وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ.
وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ.
Yes, you're getting there. Alhamdulillah. You just need to keep practicing and reminding yourself about the ta. Jazakumullah khairan. Your lam was fine. And the ha was nice and light at the end. Then we have the word وَرَسُولَهُ. وَرَسُولَهُ. The waw is light. We've followed, it's sandwich now, the ra. We've got a heavy ra sandwich between two light letters. So again, level of control needed here. You're going wa, ra, su, wa rasulah, wa rasulah. Okay. Wa, your lips come out all the way. Wa, be careful not to say wa. Wa, ra, wa, ra, su, not su. Don't, if you make it heavy, remember you're going to change the letter, and that's a big mistake. That's lahnul, it's a lahnul jali. So this, you don't want to be saying su, you want to be saying su. Wa rasulahu. When we come to the end here and we say lahu, we can see this little wow. This is for those of you that know this is mad sila sughra. And if we're going to carry on reading, it will be stretched for 2 counts. Okay, so it says again a very specific version of mad tabi'i. Mad tabi'i is your standard 2-count mad, and specific cases have other names. Okay, just how we saw the mad badal yesterday. Here we see the this one is called, so this one again is a 2-count mad, but it's called mad sila sughra. Okay. It's read in continuation. It's when we carry on reading the lam, then we make it 2 counts. If we stopped on this word, then we would say wa rasulah. Then you wouldn't read the mad waw at all. Okay, it is dropped and we put a sukoon on the ha. Okay, but in continuation we stretch it for 2 counts. So Sister Salma, if you could join me for this part. وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُمْ.
وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُمْ.
Not bad, alhamdulillah. Your seen can be lighter, and also the ha at the end of the name of Allah can also be lighter. So we'll try that one more time. It also gives an opportunity for those of you at home to also practice again. Just before we do say it one more time, I just want to finish, because I did read la yalitkum. I just want to mention the la is light in 2 counts. Yalitkum, you have to be careful of the kasra here. You don't want to be saying yale, yalitkum, yali, yalitkum. Okay, make sure you get the kasra e sound. The ta, of course, here we've mentioned is a letter of shiddah followed by hams. In other words, stop the sound first, and then what? Then you hear the breath or the air. Okay, so yalit, yalit. Okay, you stop the sound first, then the breath. Yalitkum. Okay, let's try that, Sister Salma. وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُمْ.
وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُمْ.
So mashallah, your ta this time in tuti'u was better than the previous time. So mashallah, alhamdulillah, that's good. The scene, I know you're working on it. It can still be a little bit lighter. But mashallah, the rest was good. The ha, mashallah, you managed to fix as well. So Allah bless you. Jazakumullah khairan. We then move on when we see the word yalitkum min. You see this part here, the meme followed by the meme. We have seen this before. So again, if you can remember the name of this rule, or even one or two names, or just be able to explain what you think is going on here, then have a go. When you have a meme sakin like this followed by a meme, we call this, and remember the shadda is your giveaway, because the shadda is not actually, wouldn't actually be there if these two words were written in any other Arabic textbook other than the Quran, right? It's only there because of the Quran, which means the shadda is there because of a tajweed rule. And normally a shadda is there if it is the rule of idgham. Okay, this is idgham mutamathilain. Mutamathilain. Okay. Mutamathilain, of course, means that you have two of the same letters. Okay, you have a meme followed by a meme. So remember, you prolong the ghunna here. It's idgham, so it's akmal ghunna. And so you stay on the joining, and then after that you carry on with min. La yalitkum min. La yalitkum min. I do want to carry on till the end because there's a couple of things I want to mention before we come back and recite this. So we have the noon sakin here followed by the hamza. I'm not sure I've ever told you about this rule, right? Now the hamza we know is a throat letter, okay? We know that because remember we did our crisscross diagram earlier on in some of the earlier sessions. I think in two of them we looked at it. We separated the throat letters, top, middle, and bottom, right? So we know that there's 6 of them. So if any of those 6 letters, the ha, the ghain, the ha, the ain, the hamza, or the ha, if they appear or they come after a noon sakin like we see here, or a double, or a tanween, like an in un sound, then you are pronouncing the noon with what we call idhar. It's called idhar halqi. Idhar means you pronounce the noon clearly. So in other words, there's no blending, there's no hiding, there's no idgham type thing going on. You're going to pronounce the noon solid in its own right, clearly, and then you'll also apply the tawassut, because you know that the noon sakina is a tawassut letter. It's one of the letters that you stay on, not too long, not too short. Okay, and then you move on to a clear hamza. So there's no kind of merging of these letters or hiding of the noon. It's just min a, min a, min a. Okay. The hamza is then joined, of course, to the ain. We've seen this before, so I'm going to move on. So we just got to make sure that you start at the bottom of the throat and move up and then squeeze after. The meme is pronounced for 2 counts because of the mad alif here, the mad tabi'i. We have a'mal, and a'malikum, the likum is fine. We've discussed that many times. Li, of course, we've got to make sure that E sound is there. Let's straight up till there, because I want to discuss a little bit about the word shay'a. So, Sister Humaira, if you'd like to join me for this part. وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُم مِّنْ أَعْمَالِكُمْ.
وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُم مِّنْ أَعْمَالِكُمْ.
Jazakumullah khairan. Good, alhamdulillah. Then we have the word shay'a. Okay. Now again, we got this lean. We've seen this earlier on. I don't think it's come very recently. So shay'a, of course, remember you're pronouncing the sheen with the fatha. Sha, sheen, fatha, sha, followed by and joined with the ya, and ya is a rahawa letter. You're going to keep prolonging it. Shay, 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 not shay, sha, shay, sha, shay. So you pronounce the fatha and then you join with the ya. Now this is what I want to discuss also today, is the hamza with the fathatain. Okay. Now this, when we stop on this word, we pronounce it as shay'a, shay'a. You take away one of these fathas and you end up pronouncing one fatha with a mad alif. It becomes a 2-count mad. Okay. But this stopping, the way that we stop and the mad rule that we apply here does have a special name. It's called maddul iwad. Okay, or mad, I mean, you could write it in English, mad iwad. Okay, maddul iwad is whenever you're going to, it always occurs only when you're going to stop on a word. And it's when you stop on a word whenever, the only time this is applied is when the last letter has a fathatain. It has a double, not any double, it has to be just an. So for example, you may have the word aliman. Okay, you may have the word turaban, turaban. Okay, you may have the word ma'an, or you may have the word du'a'an. Okay, now in all of these cases, now notice all of them are fathatain only. Okay, so it's only for these cases. What are we doing? For any time we stop on a word like this, we always remove one of the fathas and we pronounce the mad alif. So we make it 2 counts. We'll stop on this first word as alima, turaba, ma'a, du'a. Notice that with these last two, the ones at the bottom, when there is a hamza as the last letter, more often you will see there is no mad alif here. There's no alif drawn. We had it on the top two, but we don't have it on the bottom. With the letter hamza, normally usually you will see it without the mad alif. In this word here that we're seeing in the ayah, it does have a mad alif, but usually it won't. Whether it has the alif drawn or whether it does not have the alif drawn, we always stop on that word with an alif. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether you see it or not, you will pronounce it. You will say ma, okay, dua, stretch it for 2 at the end. The only thing you need to be careful of is when you stop on a word which ends with the feminine ta or the ta marbuta. So for example, the word shajaratan. Okay, shajaratan. Or you may have the word which we are very familiar with. You may have the word jannatan. Okay, whenever you have this feminine ta, and it has to be this ta, not this one, not the ta mabsuta. Okay, so not this one. Okay, not, it has to be this circled closed ta marbuta. Okay, whenever you see this one with the fathatain, with the double, and it's only the an, remember, we're only still focusing on the an. In this case, the stopping is very different. So I'm going to kind of draw a line so that it's separate. In this case, you do not stop in the same way. What happens is you remove the dots and turn it into a ha, and you add a sukoon. So it becomes shajara, jannah. Okay, so this is like almost the exception to the rule. If the last letter happens to be a ta marbuta with a fathatain, then we do not apply the rule of maddul iwad. Instead, there's a different rule taking place where the ta changes into a ha and you recite it with a sukoon. Okay, I hope that's clear. That's very quickly the basics of maddul iwad. Okay, so let's recite this one more time. So I'll get Sister Salma to say this for me, please. وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُم مِّنْ أَعْمَالِكُمْ شَيْئًا.
وإن تطيعوا الله ورسوله لا يلتكم من أعمالكم شيئا.
That's good, alhamdulillah. What I would like you to do is when you say tuti, because you circle the lips for the tu, when you go for the ta, I can hear you moving, going tuti, right? Tuti. It's almost like it's almost, instead of being ti, it's tuti, right? So what you want to do after saying tu, you don't want to pause for too long, but tu, stop, go to the position of ti, tuti, 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 tuti. Try that again.
تطيعوا.
It's better, alhamdulillah. Yes, one more time. تطيعوا.
تطيعوا.
Yes, mashallah, good, alhamdulillah. Okay, and then finally we have Inna Allah, which we have seen many times. Again, Noon Mushaddad Akmal Gunna. We're going to hold the joining. Inna. The Noon is then joined with the Lams in Lafzul Jalala, in the name of Allah. So what are we doing here? We just have to make sure that the Noon is light. Inna. But the Lams in the name of Allah, have a go. Everybody at home, all the Lams here in the name of Allah read heavy or light. So, and if you have guessed, then also give the reason why do you think it's heavy or why do you think it's light. In this case, the lams will be read heavy because the letter before is noon and it has a haraka at the top. It has a fatha. So the lams will be heavy. But because the lams are heavy and the noon is a light, I don't know what I'm doing with my H there, and it's preceded by a light noon, we just have to make sure that we do not make the noon heavy. We don't say inna Allah, no, inna Allah, inna Allah. Okay, so the noon is kept light and then back to a light ha at the end. Okay, then we have the word ghafurun. The ghain, of course, is heavy. It's from the top of the throat. Gha, gha. Remember, you rely on the sound of your voice, not your breath. So you shouldn't be hearing gha, gha, right? That's mixed with air. You just want your voice, just like when you say ah, gha, gha, gha. It's just the sound of your voice. Ghafur, the fa, of course, we know is from the lips. We've talked about the makhraj of the fa in the past. It's stretched for 2 counts. It's a normal, regular mad tabi'i in continuation because of the waw. Now here we have a rule that we've seen before. So come on, my dear sisters, let's see if you can remember the name of this rule. You have a tanween, a double, followed by the letter ra. We have seen this rule before. And the clue which is given to you here is that you can see a shadda here. So I did mention this earlier. So see if you can still remember the name. If you're fasting and it's difficult for you and you're finding it hard to concentrate, no worries if I need to remind you again. Alhamdulillah. But have a go. What do you think is happening here? So this rule is, yes, if those of you who have got it, it is idgham. So well done to those of you who got it right. It's idgham kamil. It's a complete idgham. And it is bidun ghunna. It's without the ghunna. Okay. I don't think we've seen it with a ra. We've seen it with a lam before. But when we did see it with the lam, and I did mention bidun ghunna, I said if it's a lam or a ra. I'm not sure if you can remember that far back, but we did touch on the fact that if it's a ra. So what are we doing here? The noon that you hear here in run, ghafurun, that noon that you hear is going to become a copy of the next letter, which is a ra. So you will say ghafuru, ghafurur, ghafurur. So you'll move, the noon has completely gone, and there's no ghunna. It's not like I'm saying ghafur, see there's some kind of ghunna thing going on there. You don't need that. It's just straight to the ra. Ghafur rahim, ghafur rahim. And the ra's are all heavy here. So alhamdulillah, we don't need to think about switching from light to heavy. They're all heavy. Okay, let's try this. Sister Homera. إن الله غفور رحيم.
إن الله غفور رحيم.
Good. MashaAllah, well done with your ras. You're getting there, alhamdulillah. You didn't say you're old. You didn't say you're old ra today, mashallah, which is good. Alhamdulillah. Progress. May Allah make it easy for you and allow you to get to a really polished ra very soon. Okay, so let's do this ayah one more time. Actually, I'm gonna, let's do it quickly because there is a question from Sister Halima. So I want to also, if I can quickly also explain that at the end. Sister Homera, if you can do this first part of the ayah for me as well, please. وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُم مِّنْ أَعْمَالِكُمْ شَيْئًا.
وَإِن تُطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَا يَلِتْكُم مِّنْ أَعْمَالِكُمْ شَيْئًا.
أعمالكم, the ain, you don't want to pause after the ain, and your kaf in yalitkum was better than the kaf in a'malikum. So remembering the makhraj of the kaf, a'malikum.
أعمالكم.
There you go, mashallah, very nice. And the last part, Inna Allah ghafurur rahim.
إن الله غفور رحيم.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Good. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so Sister Halima has got a question. I'm going to try and answer as quickly as I can. She's saying, when Islam sister, could you please cover inshallah when the ta and the ta are joined? So for example, you have the word tatma'inna. I hope I've done the ta and the ta the right way round. Tatma'inna. Not in terms of this word, but I hope that's the right way round that Sister Halima meant. Ta first, followed by the ta. So here when you are joining the light ta with the heavy ta, it's a similar thing where you've got to first make sure you say the ta, nice and light, ta, ta, ta. And then after completing the ta, you move on to a heavy ta. Okay. Now the ta, when it has a sukoon, is a qalqala letter, which means it's a bouncy letter. Okay. The bounce is heavy too. So we start off with a ta, 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 ta. So by the time you get to the ta, now your back of the tongue is involved. At the beginning, the back of the tongue is rested. Da, 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 back of the tongue is not involved. In fact, all you're doing is you're just lifting the tip of the tongue for the ta, ta. The rest of the tongue is flat. Ta, you start at the top, actually, ta, ta, ta. That's what you're doing, right? But when you want to then join with the ta, you'll say ta, to. It'll be like that kind of a movement. So you start like this, that, then you're going to go back up for the ta. But when you go back up for the ta, the back of the tongue comes up as well. So you'll say ta, start off with the ta, ta, ta. I hope that makes sense. I'm just using my arm in a funny way, right? But so you say the ta, the tip of the tongue comes down, the back of the tongue is relaxed. When you go for the ta, now your back of the tongue is coming up. And the qalqala is heavy too. So you'll say ta, 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 ta. تطمئن تطمئن. Okay, so it's the other way as well. Okay, so supposing you have the ta. If we have the ta followed by the ta, this is like the word basatta, which I have written very strangely. Okay, let's do that again. So for example, you have the word basatta. This is actually a special rule. Basatta. Okay, when you have the ta followed by the ta, now actually this only exists in I think it's 4 words in the Quran. You have the word ahabtu, basatta is one of them, and there's 2 more. So I think it's about 4 words that actually have the ta with a sukoon, and then followed by the ta. Actually, that's not what you're asking, is it? You're asking about if you had this. Sorry. But okay, yes, I'm going to leave this special rule because I don't have time for this. And also, I think it's also not exactly what you're asking because you're asking if they're joint. So the ta is now joined to the ta. What are we doing in this case? You're starting off with the tip of the tongue up. The back of the tongue is also up. Ta, ta. And then as you let go of just the front, but the back of the tongue is still up. So you get the ah sound. Ta, ta, ta. Okay. After that, now you need your tongue to relax from the back. So now you're going the other way. You start with this, and you'll say, but. So the back of the tongue is now gone down. So you start off with it up, tip of the tongue is also up, ba, and then they'll all come down, ba, and then just the tip of the tongue will come up. I hope that's clear. And then with here, you also have to remember that the ta, remember, is shidda, and it is hams. So remember, you stop the sound when you're joining it, and then follow it with the breath after. Stop the sound first, then the breath. But, okay, but, nice and light at the end. But. Barakallah fiki. I hope that's made sense for you, Sister Halima, and for everybody else. Inshallah, we'll stop there. I've gone over time now. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Could this be called No, this is not called sorry, Sister Sama, this is not called mutamathilin because mutamathilin is exactly the same letter. When you have a ta and a ta, then it's mutajanisain.
Sorry, I was talking about the 2 ra's. You know, when you're doing that, I was asking for that. You know, the Ghafoor Rahim, the ra and the ra idgham.
In terms of pronunciation, yes, but in terms of actually what's really happening is you wouldn't really call it mutamathilain because it's not written as 2 ra's because actually when you listen, you say ghafurun, it was actually a noon followed by a ra. Okay, so sometimes they do see the when they look at relationship of letters, sometimes you can see it from 2 different angles. You can see it in terms of what are you hearing. So when you say Ghafurur Rahim, yes, you're hearing a ra and a ra, but sometimes it's dependent on what's written and what you see before you. So you can see it from 2 different angles, but most of the time what I've seen is this is not normally discussed as mutamathilain because of the rule of idgham, which kind of like takes over. All right, Jazakumullah khairan. Take care, everyone. See you all tomorrow. I've already said the dua, so I'll stop with salam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.